got some news to go through before we get to the political theater continues in the House of Commons. Let's get it going. We have some interesting clips to go through, like I said before we get into it. Sound on, but not too loud. Hashtag liberal meltdown. Watching my neighbor tear down their Harris Walls sign.
Hope your day gets better.
Shut the fuck up!
Whoa. Positive energy.
Oh my god, the meltdowns have been real on Twitter. It is pure entertainment. It is just too funny. You see clip after clip and you wonder if they're authentic. You wonder if the people are legit or not, but some of them are they're just too funny. They're just too funny. This socialist is already lamenting that Trump won. He says Canadians woke up shocked, crushed, and afraid. Is that true? Are you absolutely crushed? I know I'm not.
I think a lot of folks woke up today and woke up really worried, really afraid, felt crushed. And I want you to know that now is a time for us to come together to defend Canadian interests. I know that the results of Trump, right now what it looks like Trump's election, is going to have serious impacts on Canadians. So we need to come together, all parties, all leaders, and put Canadian interests first. We have to protect Canadian jobs. We have to be prepared for the impacts of potential tariffs and what that would mean for our economy, for manufacturing, for jobs in Canada. We need to be very united.
Yeah, something that you have failed to do, Jagmeet, is be united and be for Canadians. Time and time again, you had the option to vote and have the vote of non-confidence go through, but you're sitting there waiting for your multi-million-dollar pension. When Canadians called you out being corrupt, you lashed out like a man-child. It just shows that every time this man opens his mouth, he is contradicting himself more and more. He is less and less for Canadians. And the little charade there, Jagmeet, is not working anymore. People don't buy it. People haven't been buying it for a while now. And it's time that I think the NDP takes a little step back or gets a new leader, gets somebody with half a brain on their shoulders at the very least. An interesting comment from Justin Trudeau. Trudeau says he's looking forward to working with Trump because the world has become more difficult and more complicated since he left office. I wonder who has made the world more difficult and more complicated. I wonder who is at fault for that. It's definitely not the guy we're looking at in the picture right now, right? No. Justin Trudeau is a perfect man. He's done nothing wrong for Canadians ever. Oh, he is a saint. He is a shining star.
First, I want to congratulate Donald on a decisive victory last night. I look forward to working with President Trump once again to strengthen North American economic opportunities for the middle class, to grow our economies in ways that make us competitive around the world, to protect North America from the many, many challenges that exist around the world. The world is actually even more difficult and more complicated than it was 4 years ago. And I know that there's lots of work for us to do, and I'm looking forward to do it. On our side, we've been preparing for this. We're looking forward to doing this work, and we're going to make sure that this extraordinary...
He is shitting his pants. That's what this essentially comes down to. He could sit there acting all calm and collective, but guess what? He and the entire Liberal Party are not prepared. They are not prepared for Trump to step into office and do everything he did 8 years ago, and he's going to continue it, and it's going to be even greater than it was then. They're shitting their pants, man. They are not ready in the slightest. We have the weakest leader in the entire world right now, and I'm going to fast track this next clip just to prove my point. This is from 6 years ago, from a G7 summit. Trump in the middle, surrounded by other world leaders, while Trudeau is where he always is, on the outside looking in. There you go. There's Trudeau looking in as the G7 leaders have themselves a nice little conversation. Trudeau's not even involved. They don't even care about him. This is what international leaders and foreign leaders and the world, this is what they think of us with Trudeau as our leader. Look at him slowly like leaning in there to try and involve himself in the conversation. Nobody cares about him. He's not even there to them. This was 6 years ago. The same thing is going to happen again. These G7 leaders are going to get together. They're going to all surround Trump. Trump's going to be the main talking head. And Trudeau, if we don't get his ass out of our government, It's going to be this all over again. I want every liberal who has ever voted for Trudeau to watch this video. This is what you voted for. Keep that in mind. Also, this is what you voted for as well. Christia Freeland says Canadians are feeling unsettled about Donald Trump's election.
Let me start by congratulating President and President-elect Trump and his team on a truly historic election victory. I and the Prime Minister and our colleagues are looking forward to working together with them. And I do want to say, because we live so close to the United States, I know a lot of...
Wow, I'm glad she knows geography. We live so close to the United States. We are going to work very hard with the United States. We have been friends with the United States. This is what she's going to say, right? She has no confidence. Christia Freeland, the crocodile lady, producing the crocodile tears. I have no interest in honestly anything she has to say while she continues to back Trudeau and single-handedly destroy the country along with him. They are not prepared for Trump. They are not prepared. It's that simple. Speaking of something kind of funny, Hamas calls for immediate end to war after Trump election win. Oh, wow. Oh, wow. Interesting. Interesting how that works. Interesting how that works. You guys wanted to go out of your way to cause all of this garbage in the Middle East, and then Big Orange Man Bad gets into office, and you put your tails between your legs and are getting ready to run away. Oh, this is beautiful. We have a couple more things to get through before we get into House of Commons proceedings. We have a massive anti-Trump protest. This happened last night in Chicago, and another, I believe, smaller one happened in Philadelphia. Check this out. We have a bunch of people marching. Look, if you're going to have Palestine flags here, Joe Biden and Kamala Harris have been in power for the last 4 years and have done absolutely nothing. So if you're going to sit here protesting Trump, trying to back Kamala, then I clearly think you are not in the right headspace. But here we go. Massive protest outside of Trump Tower. And another one here in Philadelphia. Not as large, but still here. I believe this is the town hall in Philly or whatever it is. Interesting stuff going on there. Interesting stuff. We have just MSNBC being hypocrites at their finest. MSNBC sitting here before Trump was elected, blaming white guys, saying that it's going to be all the white people that are the issue that if Trump gets voted in. The hypocrisy comes, if Kamala were to have gotten voted in as president, MSNBC would be sitting here praising all of these black men and Hispanic men. But because Trump got voted into office, MSNBC is calling black men and Hispanic men racist and sexist. When it doesn't go their way, the double standard gets pushed into the spotlight, and it's just so funny. Let's take a look at this clip.
Really quickly, too. Democrats need to be mature, and they need to be honest. And they need to say, yes, there's misogyny. But it's not just misogyny from white men. Mm-hmm. It's misogyny from Hispanic men.
Right.
It's misogyny from black men, things we've all been talking about, who do not want a woman leading them. Might be race issues with Hispanics. They don't want a black woman as president of the United States. You know, the Democratic Party, I've always found when you're sitting around talking, they love to just sort of balkanize everybody into these separate groups and say, oh, white people don't like women and black people. No, it is time for the Democrats to say, okay, and you and I have talked about this before. A lot of Hispanic voters have problems with black candidates.
Right.
A lot
and
of,
with other Hispanics. You've got some that don't like each other. And some of the most misogynist things I've heard going on this Get Out the Vote tour came from black men. I mean, misogynist things. So you're absolutely...
Oh, so these things only matter when Donald Trump gets into office. I'm telling you right now, if Kamala were to have gotten into office, they would be sitting here praising how the minority voters came out in waves to support a minority into election. They would be sitting here spinning whatever story they want to believe. This just further proves how out of touch the mainstream media is and how much the mainstream media truly doesn't care about you. Because only when things play in their favor or don't play in their favor will they come out and truly say what they think. It's pathetic. It's disgusting. And I hope Donald Trump abolishes a lot of these mainstream media platforms that produce nothing but vile rhetoric that just further proves how out of touch they are, and they further discredit themselves as an actual news organization when they say stuff like this. Christ, somebody like me with 15,000 subs is more credible than MSNBC. There are way more YouTube channels out there that are more credible than places like CNN or Fox or whatever. The mainstream media is pure garbage, and they only like narratives that play into their favors. They're not even hiding the corruption anymore. Canada, 9 years under Trudeau.
I was born and raised in a first world country, and I'm probably going to end my days in a third world country. And the sad thing is, it's the same country. Look at our political system right now. It's that of a banana republic. We have Attorney General says there's 186 conflicts of interest. They won't release any of the paperwork on that. All the Liberal appointees giving their buddies' companies millions. The $400 million fund that came out of is headed by the ethics commissioner appointed by Trudeau. You got to be kidding me. On top of that, we still don't know which MPs were guilty of foreign collusion in the last election and since. Their criminal justice system is a joke. Weaponized, the Liberal government's weaponized that system, made it into a political tool. It's just ridiculous. They're not even hiding the corruption anymore. The Foreign Affairs Minister, Jolie, her husband got $40,000 because he's an entrepreneur. Are you fucking kidding me? I don't know.
Questions orales, oral question.
Question period. It looks like Scheer is going to be leading the brunt today.
Of brutal assaults on Canadian energy workers, the Prime Minister just delivered a knockout punch with a production cap on oil and gas development here, which his own department admits will kill jobs and drive investment south of the border. Canadian energy company Enbridge just announced a $700 million project in the U.S. The Prime Minister is creating powerful paychecks for American workers while Canadian workers can't afford their mortgages or food. It's completely baffling why he would kill jobs here just to see them created down south. Is he getting some kind of a commission from the U.S. energy lobby for all the business he's sending them?
The Honourable Minister of the Environment and Climate Change.
Mr. Speaker, what the member opposite is saying is simply not true. It's a cap on pollution, Mr. Speaker. In fact, production is going to go up 16% by 2030, and companies in Alberta, in the oil sands sectors, are making billion-dollar investment to make sure that workers in Alberta have a future and the energy sector has a future, and we can fight climate change at the same time, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member from Regina Capel.
It's a cap on production, and his own department says it will kill jobs. And let's listen to something else that their own officials are saying. The Prime Minister's own Environment Commissioner has blasted the carbon tax as a failure. Here's some of his conclusions. Quote, the government has not made sufficient progress to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. And quote, Canada remains the worst performer among all member countries of the G7. Every time the Prime Minister makes the carbon tax go up, Canada's climate performance goes down. Yet he keeps doing the same thing over and over, expecting a different result. So why won't he call a carbon tax election so Conservatives can stop his insanity?
The Honourable Minister for the Environment and Climate Change.
Mr. Speaker, the Conservative Party of Canada is talking about climate change. We should note this somewhere in a book because it doesn't happen very often. If only they would talk about the fact that for 10 years they did nothing, which is why we had to pick up the slack from what they... When we came into power, emissions were going to overshoot 2030 by more than 30%, Mr. Speaker. Emissions are down by 8% because of our plan, the lowest emissions in 25 years, no thanks to the Conservative Party.
Encourage all members, please, to not take the floor unless they're recognized.
Starting off early, Greg.
The Honourable Member from Regina Capel.
Pick up the slack. Under their policies, Canada keeps falling on performance indexes. The only thing this carbon tax is doing is making Canadian Canadians poorer. And the results are devastating. A damning new report from the Salvation Army shows the human suffering this Prime Minister is inflicting on Canadians. Let's look at the report. First-time users of food banks shot up this year from 43% to 58%. And 1 in 4 parents are eating less so their children can eat. This is in Canada. How can he be so cold-hearted? Why won't he at least let Canadians decide in a carbon tax election?
The Honourable Minister for Economic Development in Quebec.
Monsieur le Président, savez-vous qui...
Mr. Speaker, do you know who has an inferiority complex in this place?
Trudeau.
It's the Conservative Party, because Canada has the lowest inflation. Interest rates are going down. Not only are we helping Canadians in need, we're building housing, we've got the family benefits, and the only ones in this place with an inferiority complex about Canada's economic resiliency is the Conservative Party. The Honourable Member for Mégantic-L'Érable. The Prime Minister, supported by the Bloc. We learned today that our greenhouse gas emissions records are not reliable. And this Prime Minister contributed to doubling the price of food and rent, while at the same time not succeeding in reducing greenhouse gas emissions. They've not met any of their targets. When will the Prime Minister call an election so that we can cut taxes? The Honourable Minister of the Environment. Mr. Speaker, you're going to have to put this on your calendar. The Conservatives have raised the question of climate change. They did nothing while they were in office. Nothing for energy efficiency, nothing for electrification of transit. The Conservatives did nothing. Their record was not good. Canada has had the best plan in recent years for reducing emissions, and it's certainly no thanks to the Conservative Party. They have no plan for the environment, no plan to protect Canadians, and no plan for national security.
And you guys had no plan for Jasper.
I think the minister should read the Commissioner of the Environment's report. It's clear. Reductions are not attributable to any steps taken by the government. The Liberal environment policy is not a policy. It's just a plan for the environment. It's just a plan to tax. The Liberals, Canada under the Liberals has the worst record for emissions reductions. When will the government stop punishing Canadians so that we can finally cut taxes after an election?